What do Renewables UK, Scottish Renewables, Greg Jackson from Octopus, the chair of Great British Energy, the unions and the Tony Blair Institute all have in common? They all think the Labour Party has got this wrong.
Yeah, all of them.
They all think that we should make the most of our oil and gas in the North Sea. Yep. These are some of the most powerful advocates for clean energy in this country. These are the great and the good of the Labour left. Yeah. They all get that shutting down the North Sea is an act of economic self-harm, an unforgivable own goal when it comes to Britain's energy security. The question is, why doesn't the Labour Party? Let's go through their arguments one by one. First, the Secretary of State has argued that the North Sea does not help our energy security because all of the oil and gas gets sold abroad. This is rubbish. We use all of the gas that we drill in the North Sea. It makes up about half of our supply. If we do not use our own North Sea gas, by 2035 we'll be 3 times more reliant on foreign imports of LNG. That's much dirtier foreign gas. Why would we use that when we could use our own? The idea that it does not affect our energy security is pure misinformation from the Secretary of State, and MPs in the House today would be unwise to repeat it. Even the Climate Change Committee acknowledges that we will still need oil and gas for decades to come. If we are going to need it, then we should get as much as possible from Britain. Absolutely. That's just common sense. Second, they say maximising our own resources in the North Sea makes us more reliant on fossil fuels. This is total rubbish. Yeah. Producing our own oil and gas has no connection with our consumption of oil and gas. The biggest barrier to electrification is not our oil and gas industry, it's the party opposite, making electricity more and more expensive by piling levies and taxes onto people's bills. Using electricity to heat our homes or drive our cars can help us make us resilient during a price spike, but the problem is our electricity is too expensive. And what the Secretary of State is doing, piling cost after cost onto people's electricity bills, is making the problem worse. I will give way on that point.
I'm most grateful to the Right Honourable Lady for giving way. Would she agree with me that the simple thing to do in order to bring down the bills is to scrap net stupid zero, so you can scrap all the carbon taxes, scrap all the green levies, and all our consumers and households are better off?
And please, your donors.
Well, I thank the gentleman for his question. I do think we need to take some of the green taxes and levies off electricity bills, because the problem that you've got is if the party opposite keep making electricity more expensive, no one will want to use it. Yep. That's why our policy is the opposite of theirs. We believe we should make electricity cheap by taking off green taxes and levies. And that has nothing to do with the North Sea. Drilling in the North Sea doesn't stop anyone buying an electric car. It doesn't stop us building nuclear, of which I am a strong advocate, or wind or solar for that matter. They say that drilling in the North Sea leaves us tied to fossil fuels. But why? They only need to look at Norway to see this isn't true, a country which makes the most of its own oil and gas resources, but where lots of people drive EVs. So let's hear none of that argument today. Third, they say it won't help reduce costs for ordinary people. This is economically illiterate rubbish. We are paying tens of billions of pounds to import oil and gas from Norway from the exact same basin we could be drilling ourselves. What does destroying our oil and gas industry mean for public finances over the next decade? £25 billion in lost tax revenue. They say they are taxing the wealthy. Are they in the real world? They are taxing anybody with a pulse. Pensioners, middle earners, small businesses, farmers, drivers. If they breathe, they are taxing them. They are taxing them and people are suffering. But they could instead be getting that tax revenue from thriving industry instead. I'll happily give way on that point.
The North Sea oil industry halved in the last decade when her party was in government.
The Honourable Lady might like to know that oil and gas jobs have been stable for the last 6 years, but we are losing 1,000 jobs a month because of their policies. The reason I know that is because I have been to Aberdeen. Maybe she would like to do the same. We also saw yesterday that the markets are charging us 5% for our borrowing. That's because they think we borrow too much and earn too little. But there's an easy way for the country to earn some more money. We can make the most of our own resources and back the North Sea, and this would drive down costs for everyone. It's unfashionable at the moment to talk about balance of payments, but if you keep sending billions of pounds abroad and rack up your credit card bill, that causes costs for everybody. Fourth, climate. Labour will say drilling our own oil and gas in the North Sea is climate vandalism. I'm quoting the Secretary of State. This is patent rubbish. Every drop of gas we don't drill ourselves, we import from abroad instead. The LNG that we import has 4 times the emission of gas that we could get from the North Sea. LNG, for those who don't know, is gas that has to be frozen to minus 150 degrees, shipped in diesel-chugging tankers, then heated up here. That's why it has much higher emissions overall. Now, the Labour Party, who say they care about this and that climate change is the biggest threat to our national security, their words, not mine, they have a choice today. We could be 3 times more reliant on that dirtier LNG shipped across the Atlantic, shipped in from the Middle East, or we could use our own gas with 4 times fewer the emissions. Which would they prefer? Virtue signalling higher emissions under the Secretary of State, or more jobs and lower emissions under our plans to back the North Sea? I'll happily give way in that point.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend. And does she not, like me, feel not only sorry for all the consumers up and down the country who see billions of taxes that could be paid if we just produce more oil and gas here, could be used to lower the taxes when they fill up their cars and travel to work, but does she also not feel sorry for the 2 members opposite, because they are captured by an ideological Secretary of State? Neither of the 2 ministers on the front bench are idiots, neither of them, and yet they are captured by an ideological Secretary of State who's literally having to make them swear that black is white.
I thank my right honourable friend, and these are 2 Scottish MPs. They have been to industry. They know what people in those areas are saying. They know the jobs that are being lost. And the question is, when the answer is so blindingly obvious, when we could use things that we make in this country rather than using dirtier imports from abroad, the question they need to ask themselves is, why can't their Secretary of State see the truth? Fifth, they say new fields will take too long to get up and running. This is dangerous, short-termist rubbish. Jackdaw and Rosebank could be up and running by Christmas. They have been sat on the Secretary of State's desk gathering dust. This hiding behind the process, I was part of the process. It is in the Secretary of State's gift. It is up to him to make the assessment. We are in an energy crisis. He could speed this up if he chose to do so. Jackdaw alone could produce enough gas to heat over 1.5 million homes. As their own Chancellor commends Norway and Canada for drilling more. That's what she said last week. She commended them for drilling more. She said every country must do its part by generating more oil and gas. They should ask themselves why their party position seems to be support the oil and gas industry anywhere but Britain.
Right, I'd just like to clarify whether the Honourable Lady agrees with herself when she was Shadow Energy Minister that nobody's saying that net zero was a mistake. Net zero in the round was the eminently sensible thing to do. We need to decarbonise and we need to have an ambitious target to aim for.
Well, I would thank the Honourable Lady, but I don't think it takes much effort to read out a whip's question. The question she needs to answer is why she's supporting a policy which is going to increase British emissions. She's supporting a policy which means that we're importing goods with higher emissions. That is what she's supporting today. 5 bad arguments which have been thoroughly disproved by people outside of this chamber, by people that they supposedly respect. 5 bad arguments spun by the Secretary of State which should be consigned to history. What the North Sea can actually give us is what it's been doing all along: stronger energy security, a stronger environment, a stronger economy. Are these not things that we want the next generation to have? And the question they need to answer is this: what reason does Renewable UK or their very own chair of Great British Energy have to back the North Sea if it doesn't give us these very things. Yeah. Maybe, just maybe, it's time for them to admit that their Secretary of State has approached his role with a dangerous, blinkered ideology rather than being interested in the national interest. Absolutely. Maybe even they realise that they are once more being marched up the hill on the wrong side of history, on the wrong side of public opinion, when we all know there will be an inevitable U-turn from the Prime Minister and the Chancellor in a few weeks' time. It is mad at the best of times to not want to make the most of our own resources. This idea that you would ban industry if you think they can't change prices in this country. Let's be clear, that is an argument to shut down all business in this country. There is a benefit to making things in Britain. It's called jobs and tax revenue and self-reliance. The Labour Party used to understand that, and I will happily give way on that point.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend giving way. And on that point about security and growing it at home, I'm sure my right honourable friend shares my concern that in the push for renewables, we are entirely reliant on the processing being done in China, on the other side of the world. So when the party opposite talk about not being reliant on petrochemical dictators, they seem perfectly happy to be reliant on renewable dictators.
My honourable friend makes an excellent point. In the trade wars that we saw last year, China limited the export of several rare minerals, which would be critical components in the renewable supply chain. Having an energy system which is dominated by renewables is having a system which is completely reliant on China. And that is why we think that is the wrong approach. It is mad at the best of times to not want to make the most of our own resources. In the middle of a supply crisis, it is completely unforgivable. And yet that's exactly what Labour MPs will vote for today. They are on the wrong side of history on this one. They should put their disastrous Secretary of State zealotry to one side, fast-track Rosebank and Jackdaw, reverse their disastrous bans and taxes, and put our energy resilience over their narrow political interests by backing the North Sea. And I will give way on that final point.
Thank you, Honourable Lady, for giving way. Can I first of all thank the Shadow Minister and the Conservative Party again for bringing this forward. My constituents tell me very clearly, if we have oil, let's dig it and let's drill it and let's make sure that we get the opportunity of it. Now, is it not ludicrous for the Labour Party to let Norway get all the assets from the drilling and us to get nothing when it's the same bed that we have? Really, for the Labour Party to have any other sort of policy is ludicrous. It's against the will of the people, it's against the will of this Parliament, of us on this side, and I think the Minister should take a review of his decision.
Well, I thank the honourable member. I think these are the strongest words that I've heard from him in my entire time in Parliament, and the party opposite would be wise to heed them. At the moment, we are in a situation where we share the same basin with Norway, and last year they drilled 46 new wells and they made 21 new discoveries, and we drilled 0 wells for the first time since 1964. This is exactly the same basin. There is not a geology difference. It is a political line drawn down the middle. It is quite clear that it's the Labour Party's approach and the Secretary of State's approach which is driving this industry into the ground. I will happily give way on that point.
I thank the Right Honourable Lady for giving way. And one of the reasons why Norway, of course, is so successful is because of the certainty that is applied to the tax regime in respect of oil and gas drilling. Now, within the Conservative Party motion, as I read it, they seek to remove the energy profits levy. As a point of clarity, can she be clear with the House as to whether she would want that to be replaced by the oil and gas petroleum mechanism, as suggested by so many in the industry in Aberdeen?
Thank the honourable gentleman. I know his party has a checkered past in backing the North Sea, but what I will say is that I'd be happy to work with anyone to look how we can support the industry. My position is clear. At the moment, we are taxing companies at a marginal rate of 100%. We are banning new licences, the only country in the world to do so. We are making ourselves more reliant on dirtier gas from abroad when we could be using our own resources and taking in £25 billion of tax receipts. And that's why I urge the party opposite, the party who used to be the party of workers, they used to be the party of industry, they used to be the party that understood aspiration in this country, to put themselves on the right side of history and vote for the motion today.
The question is, as on